Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to OPC Season 2. I'm AVRL, joining with me still is Pixie as we're heading into match number 2 of the evening. It's going to be Libalent Supreme taking on AHQ.
AHQ are coming into this feeling pretty good, to be honest. They took down their rivals Flash Wolves for the first time in months just yesterday. Libalent, on the other hand, still have yet to pick up a series win at this tournament. They have picked up some map wins. They've had some decent performances, but they're still desperate to get those wins. This is a team they can do it against, but AHQ do come into this the favorites.
And the story for the second round robin so far for Libalent Supreme is no, they haven't got a win yet. When will they get this win? And it doesn't appear that it gets any easier. We already said that when they went up against Ardent, but now going up against an AHQ squad that has most recently taken down Flash Wolves, it certainly doesn't get easier still.
And that's the thing, right? It's kind of flipped that up a little bit, AHQ beating Flash Wolves, because had they lost that game to Flash Wolves, this would have been the last place team versus about the 5th place team. Get back to that after this opening words from the two teams.
Do you have any words for the other side?
比赛就是比状态啦，那一定都有来有往。那昨天我们只是失误比较少的一方。那今天因为对上日本队，虽然说他们现在战绩可能不如他们预期，但是我觉得，因为其实在第一季我们就有跟他们练习过，那我们也知道他们的实力，所以我们今天也是会全力以赴。
So I feel like, who wins on the day really comes down to who plays better, who feels better. And yesterday we had a really good match day. We felt really good about this, and now we've also had a lot of experience against Libalent Supreme.
自己的实力努力的拿下这一胜，他们一定会好好加油的。同样的，我们要双方先。
So Jasper from the Libalent Supreme side says as well that we've been preparing for this. We've been working really hard with this team, with the new team member as well, to really get into the string of things. So now it's Libalent Supreme's time to really shine. Show us what they're made of.
Cool. Well, there you go. And that's the thing. What I was saying just a moment ago. Had AHQ lost yesterday, this would have been them in, I believe, 6th or 5th place. One of the two would have depended on actually the Mega Thunder matchup, but probably 5th place, right? And that's actually quite reasonable for a team like Libalent to look to pick up map wins. Maybe a series win, maybe not, but that's within striking distance. And actually in their own performance yesterday against Ardent, Libalent did look a lot better with their new player Ryan than they had in the one prior to that with Ryan, which had been his debut. So on the whole, that was a very realistic kind of prospect. Now look, AHQ beating Flash Wolves does change that a little bit in that this team is now a little bit better than what their standing maybe suggests, but it's still within striking distance for this Libalent squad to be taking maps off them. And again, we're in this situation where Ardent, the favorite team coming into this, cannot rest on their laurels.
And it does feel like what Coach Nito's saying from the AHQ side stands true as well. This is a team that really depends on how they're feeling on the day. If they're feeling great, they're playing good, then they get that win. But if not, then, well, we may see an upset from the Libalent Supreme side. Now to introduce you to the team, it's going to be Pepper on offense, Jasper on the flanks, Darton on the tank, rather, Keisuke on support, Selene on support, and new player Ryan on offense.
And Ryan's addition has been interesting. I touched on that a moment ago, but to give more detail for those of you seeing this team for the first time with this player, this isn't a straight up swap with Hotate, who had been the previous offense player that has now left the team. They've actually moved Pepper to Hotate's old role of being the main kind of DPS player, and Ryan is now in as their Tracer specialist, and he is in because they really value his Tracer. Like I said, yesterday we really got to start to see more of a glimpse of that. He did have some really shining moments compared to his very first outing with this team. It was a really great showing, and we can only expect that to improve from there. So this team very quickly has gelled together with this new roster. Now it's all about looking beyond, looking to get those wins we were talking about.
And it's been in a short amount of time as well, so looking forward to now how Libalent Supreme come up against AHQ. Just introduce this team as well. Dizzy on offense, Kerry's on support, Hihi on flex, Crappy on support, Erikin on tank, and Rapid on offense as well. And the parallels are definitely there. We talked about the fact that Ryan was brought on as a Tracer specialist. The same can be said about Rapid coming on for AHQ as the Tracer specialist, where AHQ felt like they were really missing in firepower from Season 1. They've now really been able to mesh Rapid into that team and make sure they have overcome those weaknesses. And we did see that evidently in the Flash Wolves and Ardent series, or rather Flash Wolves and AHQ series, where Rapid came into his own and really gave Bacon a Jacob run for his money.
He absolutely did. And the other thing with AHQ here is they've had a bit of a hard time in the very Doomfist heavy meta, more in dealing with enemy team Doomfists and how to kind of play around the ability to have that squishies getting one shot on the enemy team, or rather by the enemy team. But with Doomfist kind of being changed up a little bit, some teams are still running them, and notably the team they played yesterday, Flash Wolves, is still running the Doomfist. But AHQ just looks so much more comfortable in this meta. So that's kind of what's coming into this for them as well. They've picked up that Tracer Specialist just from the start of the season, and now at the halfway point, have kind of got this second wind now with the patch change and are looking really solid. So that's actually the pressure that's on Libalent here. They kind of have to match that level of Tracer Soldier play, or indeed maybe Tracer Genji.
We've already seen evidence of Libalent Supreme meshing well together, making sure the synergy is on the same page as well with new player Ryan coming on. That was evident in the Ardian series despite going down 0-3. Now in a short amount of time, how much have they improved still now to take up AHQ? Can they get a map win? Jasper was a big factor in the AHQ game, or rather the Ardian game as well. Him on the Xayah was one of the main reasons that Libalent Supreme found a lot of success on King's Row. Now again, they didn't win that map, but they did really push Ardian, and that's important.
Exactly, and that's the thing, like his play on the whole was very smooth, very clean, and like I said as well, the team just kind of came together quite a lot in that matchup. Them losing it is, I mean, it's almost just a side effect sometimes, it feels, from it being the first place team versus the last place team. It is not at all unexpected, but that doesn't mean there aren't positive things to take away from that match that Libalent played. So like I said, this is within striking distance still for Libalent. It's maybe a little bit tougher than it could have been if, for example, AHQ hadn't beaten Flash Wolves just yesterday, or if the patch change hadn't come through for this particular week, and all these other factors, but it is still a match they could maybe win.
And it has to be, because we're starting to run out of time now for Libalent Supreme. We're starting to run out of possible matches for this team as well. If not AHQ, then who? You're going to have to start looking at Machi. Then you're going to have to start looking at Mega Thunder again, because for Libalent Supreme, the list just keeps getting shorter for this team. And for AHQ, these wins really count for them as well, because now, after beating Flash Wolves, they really are fighting to maintain their spot in the top 4, and they're going to need to continue these win streaks to get that continue that maintenance.
Exactly. I mean, the ideal outcome of the second round robin for Libalent Supreme is avoiding relegations altogether. But if that's not a possibility, they still need to have really good showings in all these matchups. They need to have kind of what they had yesterday against Ardiant, where even though they lost, there were those positives you could take away. If they're getting that in every single match they play, especially if they're also taking map wins in them, then actually that's a huge positive going into relegations, right? Because this is a team that qualified through that exact same promotion relegation tournament. They know, generally speaking, the caliber of teams they might face there, and will go into it with a wealth of experience playing against the best teams in the region. That's actually a situation where you can feel quite confident that you'd make it back into the next season of OPC. It's still a little bit questionable, don't get me wrong. It's never comfortable to go into relegations. There is very real risk, but there is a lot they can still do between now and that potential, because it's also not guaranteed, don't forget that could secure them another spot later on down the line.
Libalent are going to need to be able to step up as well, because the improvement from now and then is definitely what's going to determine how they go for the rest of the season, and then their ability to come back for the next season as well. But the map pick has come out. It's going to be Lijiang Tower, and Libalent Supreme smartly avoid Ilios.
Is that a pro Genji?
Apparently
Not anymore.
Apparently not.
The moment the deflect ends, my favorite thing in this game, by the way, is when you see a Genji step in a Junkrat trap and they just instantly deflect. Like, it's like this panic reflex, right? You can like, the moment I see a Genji in a Junkrat trap, I stop shooting at them, because I know they're about to deflect, and then the moment it ends, that's when you kill them, because the deflect lasts shorter than the trap. It's just the funniest thing, like, without fail. It's almost like they don't actually press the button, like, stepping into a Junkrat trap automatically makes that skill trigger or something like that. Like, it's got to be. It's so reliable. But let's actually put some attention onto the matchup at hand now. Like you said, Lijiang Tower, this is pretty neutral territory, as we always say. And actually a map that, honestly, Libalent have had some real successes on.
Especially now, you know, when we come into this Lijiang Tower matchup, Ryan versus Rapid's going to be very important in this matchup as well. We have to really look at what Pepper's going to do, because he's had a couple different hero picks. He's tried the Doomfist on Night Market, he's tried the Pharah, and I guess in addition to that, the Pharmacy combo in combination on the Gardens as well. So now for Pepper, exactly what is he going to do? Is he going to pick up the Soldier? Is he going to try and go back on the Doomfist? He hasn't really found that one combination of hero picks that really works for this team. He hasn't really found his niche yet.
What they do still have available, though, is, of course, The McCree. And one thing we do see Pepper consistently having a lot of success on is the McCree. His hit scan DPS is really, really solid. And now, like we said, with Ryan on the squad, that Tracer specialist who is already filling the shoes rather that Pepper vacated by stepping off that Tracer. This is a
slow roller coaster ride.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just thinking. I was like,
let's take a look at that again.
Yeah. Like, you know, when you're on a roller coaster and you get that real, like, weightless feeling as the drop goes down, like...
The slowest drop ever.
Yeah, like, when it's really slow, like, that kind of defeats the purpose of a roller coaster. There's just no thrill. But this could still be a thrilling matchup because Dizzy's going to come out the gate on a Widowmaker.
This is a real pick. Make note, this is not warm-up time or anything like that.
I repeat, this is not a drill. He's got some interesting sightlines here, actually. He's having to stand quite vulnerably, and Libalent made a great move to get around to the point, so no one was able to get picked off in that opening move, and they're already converting the kills as well. This is a really nice move now by AHQ.
And they played that situation well because they allowed Dizzy the space. A good Widowmaker team goes aggressive, you give the Widowmaker the space, you really tie up the enemies on the other side, and then open up the sight lane. That's all you need to do. You don't wait for the Widowmaker to make the pick first. You go in, you get aggressive, and the Widowmaker will follow suit.
Need I remind you of Dizzy's Widowmaker yesterday against Flash Wolves on Ilios? He absolutely popped off, and we just saw the same thing again. There was like, what, 3 or 4 kills? He's going to get the infra sight up now, and he's still got great sidelines. Libalent do need to do something to deal with this Widowmaker. They can't just straight up take the skirmish in the open space.
And the thing that he popped the most was Zonda's head in that matchup onto Ilios. We're not onto Ilios anymore, but still onto Night Market. He's doing the job. Infrasight nearly up now. Hihi picking up the kill into Selene, and we're still in a situation where AHQ making the space for Dizzy's Widowmaker to work.
Yeah, Libalent had a good opportunity there. Even though they lost Selene, their members were quite healthy, but AHQ recognized that and backed up very safely. That being said, neither team won or lost that fight, so now they're back into what is basically an even fight. Oh, Pepper a little bit too far over, but the team has closed out the fight anyway, and they should get just enough time for him to rejoin with the late deaths on Eric and Hihi there.
It's one of the few moments where, because the fight really took place on the cap itself, Dizzy was trying to find angles, didn't really get anything there. Infrasight's off the table now as well. Certainly that also means Widowmaker off the table for Dizzy. It's back onto the McCree, but this is going to be I guess, a bit of an interesting note because we didn't see the greatest McCree out of Dizzy yesterday. He's going to have to make up for that.
Did I just hear Doomfist say, "I'm out"? Like, that was just the coolest thing. He's like, swings in.
And then he translocated.
Like, yeah, and then now he's going to Meteor Strike. He just, like, disappears into the sky. Not getting much done, though, in this fight itself, but they're now kind of out of resources. They need to convert on the back of this Transcendence as Keras has run out. The cap getting snuck over in that as well as he closes out on Pepper, and that's the go button for AHQ. This now becomes a rout as Libalent got a little bit taken by surprise by the positioning of AHQ there.
AHQ doing well to clear up the additional kills here. Just a couple right off the end, Jasper and his mech. It's going to be AHQ continuing that lead, just making sure they continue that progress. Dizzy's made his way to build up a Deadeye now, and AHQ is sitting pretty comfortably with all these ultimates coming online.
All these ultimates, green across the board, as they say. By the way, Dizzy onto this McCree has already charged that ultimate up. That's a great pulse bomb out of Rapid, really making those ultimates count. Has to deal with Rion on the point itself, but he's forced off. Self-destruct out from Jasper really just preserves his life a little longer. And they try to preserve his life because this is a little bit closer to their spawn than it is to AHQ's, but they don't really have the numbers to sustain it. And now AHQ one fight away from holding.
This is the dangerous moment for Libalent Supreme because they've been trying to get back onto this cap. They got 36%. That slowed down AHQ, but your goal isn't to slow them down. You need to turn this around right now, be able to trigger the overtime, and then get a flip over.
Now Pepper onto what has worked in the past, and that is the Soldier, but instantly getting dove, right? He didn't have the resources. That's a great cap for Libalent Supreme. Win or lose this fight now, they have bought themselves some opportunities, and they're actually looking to stabilize. Good catch onto Dizzy, and they're really committing hard to this fight. He's going to be able to self-destruct here, which does create space, but they can't actually get a cap through. Libalent do still need to convert this fight to make it count, but they've got the tools to do so. Now closing out on Hihi's mech again, and it's only Crappy topping these members off, so Eric's now in a really tight spot, getting get closed out on. And Rayon, this is what we're talking about. He has really done good work on this team so far. Dizzy re-entering in the fight, but it's still roughly even, which now, you have to say it, favors Libalent Supreme with that point being held.
And importantly, Ryan's been getting the solo kills onto Dizzy. Whether Dizzy's onto the McCree, whether he's on the Soldier instead, it doesn't really matter. You expect Dizzy to have a lot more impact with the flashbangs, but he's not hitting them on Ryan. He's certainly not hitting them on Selene. He's been missing in general, and now with the Soldier, he still hasn't really hit his mark just yet.
Here's the late re-entry though from AHQ because they did actually get Hihi's mech back, and that's a good close on there Darrington. Honestly, Ryan, though, is working double time to keep his team in the fight, and as AHQ did come in with a bunch of kills, Libalent closed them out once again. These members that are here just have the point on lockdown. The positioning is beautiful, and in one protracted fight, they've pushed it to 99%. Where are AHQ? It's a cap from Libalent from behind.
That's got to be unexpected. This was a big turnaround play from Libalent Supreme. We talk about the fact that, yes, at about 30-something% for Libalent Supreme, you have a situation AHQ nearly capping out. They've got to be able to get that flip over. That was the most important thing, and it seemed like for AHQ, they just allowed that cap to go through. They didn't contest it. They didn't make sure that it was still holding on to their own overtime. Libalent Supreme, they got themselves ahead, and then suddenly every single kill made the extra progress worth it, and then they got into their own overtime, and suddenly a full cap out.
That was really beautiful by Libalent as well. Look, AHQ did not let them have that easy, and there were a lot of times where Libalent were really down a significant number of men, and partly it's AHQ not quite being able to close out the fights from there, but there's also the very real consideration of Libalent just outmaneuvering AHQ and recognizing that AHQ were about to be rushing to close out and making it so that they couldn't. They really kept good tabs on the tanks. Excuse me. They really didn't let them create the space for the AHQ DPS players to go off, and the members of AHQ's DPS squad there, in Dizzy and Rapid, were constantly getting outplayed by Ryan specifically, and also to a slightly lesser extent, Pepper and Jasper specifically.
No, excuse us, there does seem to be a little bit of a delay with the Libalent Supreme side, some issues with Casey's computer perhaps, but I do want to bring attention now back to AHQ just a little bit, because you do have to now mention some of the stuff that they were trying to run here. Now, the Widowmaker, that actually ended up being very successful in the start. You didn't have a lot of pressure from the Libalent Supreme side to try and counter out Dizzy. They very much just ignored him, tried to win the ground game with everybody else, kind of got some good distance. Overall, not really, but it was when Dizzy finally swapped onto the McCree that things started to look bad for AHQ.
And it was this interesting thing because the McCree did actually have a good amount of success against the Doomfist specifically, but beyond that wasn't having the extra impact. He did get a very quick Deadeye up, but didn't really get much for it. I believe he actually used it to refill the clip during a fight, and then recognized as soon as the Doomfist was changed off that he needed to be on Soldier instead, because like you said, just wasn't getting the mileage done with the McCree. But that was a really late change. It was also a late change out of Pepper to go onto the Soldier, which meant that we got to see quite an honest appraisal of where those two players are at, relatively speaking. And when it counted, it was Pepper and also, of course, Ryan on the Tracer performing where Rapid and Dizzy didn't.
And that's the thing, because you look back at the AHQ versus Flashwall series, and Dizzy had some rough moments there as well. It wasn't super clean from him. He held the zone in the majority of situations, but when he didn't, it was Rapid that stepped up. This time around, if Dizzy wasn't holding his own, unfortunately, Rapid got outshone by Ryan.
Speaking of Ryan, back out on the Tracer, as is Rapid, and this time it's going to be Pepper. Good read on the McCree because Dizzy is on the Doomfist.
And not just that, but carries onto the Sombra as well. It's going to give Pepper a lot of different flashbang targets, so expect good things out of this player, but there is a possibility as well that he just doesn't have the impact that Dizzy had on the McCree either.
That is a great split there onto Crappy, and they should be able to get some closeout. Actually, it's Jasper who's a little bit deep as they try and get the closeout, but now they're in a decent enough position that they should be able to get some kills through. AHQ have priority on the point, but Libalent still plenty of ability to get aggressive. Now Eric diving in, and actually looks like they're struggling to get through to the point as the convert comes there now for AHQ. That was kind of run a little bit close to the wire for both of these teams. The closeout on Jasper probably swing it just enough for HQ to close out, so very clean play to ensure that they secured the cap and the proceeding.
They got to close out on Jasper one more time as well, so even the respawn is for Libalent Supreme just getting cleaned up. You can look at that as a string of 7 to even 8 kills there from AHQ. Dizzy opened things up with the rocket punch, and soon things fell into place for AHQ quite quickly. The only thing that was a little bit of a hiccup was a late cap in, but other than that, it's all's gravy.
That is a very nicely placed EMP, and Darrington already closed out upon. This is the conversion that AHQ actually lacked on Night Market specifically, so this time looking a lot cleaner and lots of ultimates that Libalent are going to have to fight through.
Good news for Libalent Supreme is despite the EMP coming up, they didn't really lose any members, so they do get the opportunity to then regroup with the rest of their team, come in for a brand new attack, now with the safety of not having to deal with an EMP.
The only interesting thing at play here, actually, that's another great pick onto Keisuke. This is really just burning time. I mean, this is AHQ just racking up the advantage at this point, but Ryan's having a hard time kind of getting into this flank because those Hex health packs, but that's the one they need. Good pick on Dizzy, now forces the sound barrier, and there is no EMP this time around. It's going to be up soon, but Keras is being forced out of this fight. It's going to be hard for him to actually land that. They still need the members in to follow it up. Crappy now picks. He's self-destructing, creates a good amount of space, and Rapid converts one. This is about as even as it's going to get right now for Libalent Supreme. The EMP has already run out now, but Dizzy is still in this fight now as he respawns, and he's now looking to close it out for them. Keisuke able to get out, but it is now a retreat from Libalent. This is no longer them trying to turn the fight back around. Actually, good kill onto Dizzy could change that up a little bit. AHQ are going to fight to the last here, but Libalent, last time they were in this situation, were able to overcome that.
Now it's going to be more committal out from AHQ though, because they don't want to give this up just yet. They want to make sure at a minimum they get up to 99%. So the EMP did come out. Unfortunately, no real follow-up just yet. Kerry's finally picking up Darton. So maybe now for AHQ, they do start to turn things around. But even if they don't, they'll be happy to take the 99 and walk away.
That's a nice stick by Ryan, and that should be what they need to close out this last little bit here. Eric does get a nice one on Pepper. Nearly has a Primal Rage that he's definitely wanting to use to stall it out longer, but while he's kind of licking his wounds for a moment, now re-entering the fray, the rest of his team has been getting a little bit picked, but they're starting to get the kills in response again. This is still anyone's fight, honestly. And every single ultimate feels like it could be the one that closes it out. Oh, Darton was about to step back on the point. I think he thought someone else on his team was still on it as well. He was looking to close out some kills. Bit of an unfortunate way for it to end there for Libalent, but well-held fight for AHQ because that was very dicey.
Good confidence from the team as well to really say we're going to hold on to this one, because at various different points in there, AHQ could have decided they were going to pull back, could have decided to reconsolidate, come back in for a new push, but they decided and they looked at the situation and said we can win this, and they did. Right at the end though, you're right, Libalent Supreme just didn't have their eyes on the camp itself and let that one go.
Like I said, bit of an unfortunate way for it to end, at least on that one, but it is only 1-1. That is AHQ tying it up. Now we're going to be going on to Garden, still definitely anyone's game.
Pepe's once again read the composition quite well. He knows that Dizzy wants to go Pharmacy here, and you don't want to match his Pharmacy. You've already seen what happened when Flash was trying to do that, so instead, it's going to be the Soldier versus the Fire into the air, and Pepper wants to find a good angle to start things off with.
Yeah, great opening dive though, converting onto Keisuke. They're able to keep Selene safe, and they're now undercover, so Dizzy can't affect them too much, and they start to close out kills. They do lose Selene in this, but they're actually in a situation now where they can potentially make a dash for the point, but the pressure from Dizzy is still good. Pepper hasn't been able to safely put shots into him or Crappy, so AHQ again should be able to get the control of the point now as it unlocks.
That's the thing, you try and dive and hide away from Dizzy, but actually that gives them even better angles, that gives them even better control. If you're hiding inside the hut, you're also not shooting back at Dizzy. Ryan wants to make this a competition though, but ultimately AHQ should be closing up this gap.
They should be, but they do need to respect that. Libalent obviously wanting to commit here. They feel confident with Darton and Ryan that they can keep this one alive, and once they're on the point, there's not much Dizzy can do after he re-enters the fray. So now ultimate's being popped. They need to get the conversion off the back of them, and they need to respect Crappy's res is close at hand, and they lose Pepper as well, so it's only Ryan, and Rapid has the damage now to close this one out. They're drawing this one out really, really well, but neither team has the cap. This is advantage no one, even as AHQ are now coming out the better of it. But taking the res off the table, that's big. Eric low, they get the cap through. Libalent still fighting to the last, but the closeout on Ryan means not really much DPS left in the fray here, and the sound barrier should just be able to keep these last few members of AHQ alive.
And much like AHQ onto Control Center as well, Libalent Supreme, they don't opt to go for the reconsolidation. They want to continue this fight, and so far, they were doing a good job of it, but now, because the camp actually went to AHQ, this is now, unfortunately, not a good usage of Libalent Supreme's time. They do have to, in fact, go and regroup with the rest of the team, find another angle, and Crappy does come in with that resurrection.
Yeah, the good thing though is they do regroup, and on the whole that ended up being a more expensive fight for AHQ than it was for Libalent, just barely. That Rocket Barrage being committed at the end is what swung it. They do have the res, and that could be all they need, but that's all they have, right? Eric going down, here he's gonna get demexed, and this is the opportunity for Crappy to res. There it goes down, but here he can't get back on the mech, and the insta closeout on Rapid there is great, as the Tactical Visor gonna secure Dizzy off the back end. Crappy as well gonna get closed out on, and that is a nice regrab out of Libalent.
Extremely good patience by Libalent Supreme as well, just find that opening pick. There was an early force out from Selene's Transcendence, but other than that, trading the kill into Eric, baiting Crappy to dive in to try and save Eric, which rather than puts Crappy in a very dangerous situation, makes sure that he goes down. Dizzy's kind of left alone there. Rocket Barrages didn't really find anything, rather no Rocket Barrage, but still didn't find anything in AHQ. Just couldn't get the picks.
Now actually Libalent kind of start this off with a little bit of a lead in terms of the ultimates. That res specifically is now a long way away. They have to convert off the DPS ultimates, and they're both quite hard ultimates to convert kills off. Libalent have to be a little mispositioned, but Dizzy getting the opening pick. Oh, great concussion onto Pepper as well. Means they are now at a big numerical advantage, and the Rocket Barrage can connect because Libalent are fighting in the open. They didn't need to. They could have stuck tight on the point. Jasper knows now the game plan is stall for time, and he's going to try and maximize that. Not going to commit the self-destruct though. Going to keep that resource for the next fight, but they did at least get some ultimates out of AHQ.
Dizzy does such a great job there. He's not quite done just yet. Pepper will escape with his own life, but Jasper was more interested in getting the kill into Crappy rather than defensive matrixing the Rocket Barrage from Dizzy. And Dizzy got away with so much there. That was a really good play by AHQ. They're going to continue this lead in terms of progress, but now Libalent Supreme going for the same push that they did before in the White Room that they won to give them the cap in the first place.
Yeah, and what this does is kind of keeps Dizzy largely out of the fight. Makes it a lot harder for him to affect it, but Jasper exposing his backside to Dizzy is a great way for him to be able to affect it. Throws out the self-destruct to force AHQ off. Gets to the hee-hee. That is massive, and gets Jasper, who was out of the mech. That's going to secure that fight. 90% now. Maybe Libalent could mad dash for it.
Not just 90% in terms of progress, but Dizzy as well, nearly onto the next Rocket Barrage. This could be a really big one for the team. Selene's going to need to counter with his Transcendence and Crappy. He can even res here, so AHQ is set up to win.
Keisuke is already dead as well because they had to just run for the point with no option to take a slow wind-up. They do get rapid. That's a good Rocket Barrage. Dizzy low, doesn't quite go down, finally dies at the end, but the tempo res is going to keep AHQ toasty through this one as the Transcendence from Selene keeps Darrington tapped off. But Darrington is not the one you want on the point. It's hard for him to close out the kills. Nice try, Keisuke. At least he did rejoin it. Yeah, keeps it interesting to be sure. They may be able to get DPS back in this. Not so much luck there as Ryan, a little bit short of getting a foot on the point. AHQ 2-1. And not a comfortable win, to be sure.
It was a really difficult one because Libalent Supreme were making sure they were competitive throughout that entire series. You only have to look at the first one. It was Night Market. Brilliant turnaround. They were on the back foot, but they were able to get the win regardless. But once you got into control, so things started to look really dodgy for the team. Now onto Garden as well. Dizzy had a really good time. Some good shots blown by some good shots from Libalent Supreme regardless, but often not good enough to get the win.
And honestly, that self-destruct from Hehe ended up being what secured it. That was a really kind of on a knife edge fight. Potentially either team could have got it, and certainly Libalent were off to a good start. That was what made that last fight so hard for Libalent, was the fact that they didn't have the time after losing that one to the self-destruct. The saving grace was they lost it quickly because of the self-destruct, so they did at least get that opportunity for the last fight, but it was pretty uphill from there. That being said, the first time it was uphill, Libalent did turn it back around, took it to 99-99, were able to cap out, so that made it quite a close series on the whole, but AHQ going to secure the map itself, and that, gentlemen, is what counts.
We are seeing some of the old Hehe from Season 1 as well. You'll remember him back then as a lazy Titan. He was famous for getting multiple kills in a row with the self-destruct. Now coming to Season 2, still has some of that magic still behind him. We've yet to see the big plays that he has made in Season 1, but he's playing a little bit more reserved, a little bit more for the protection, I guess less selfish. But ultimately, it does look good for the team. And some of the questions around AHQ, such as Dizzy's effectiveness across some of the other maps on Lijiang, that was answered when we got the Gardens. But let's take a look now at the replay of Night Market.
And speaking of Dizzy's effectiveness, this was probably the peak of his effectiveness, and my goodness did it look good. Similar to what we saw in Ilios, the angles were really tough here as well, and it was an okay start for Libalent in terms of positioning. It meant Dizzy couldn't do much, but what little he could do, he totally ran away with. Gets Selene. He ends up getting a couple of kills off the back end of this as well in the form of taking out Jasper's mech, and for a Widowmaker to be able to affect the fight on the point with such narrow sightlines is nothing short of phenomenal.
And the third-person camera there really showed a lot of the positioning extra on the team because Kerry sat quite far back.
Yeah.
He was trying to just throw his auto attacks into where he could, but ultimately he was there to protect Dizzy. That's interesting because AHQ, they were expecting a little bit more pressure onto Dizzy. They had the plan B there where they were saying, okay, we want to give Dizzy a lot of space here on the camp, but also we want to make sure Ryan's not going to come back and flank us. And interestingly, Ryan never really did that. So Kerry's, he had the right idea, but ultimately didn't even need to do that. It just worked out for AHQ so smoothly.
Yeah, Libalent's opening fights were a little, I'll say lackluster. AHQ were winning them quite consistently. That being said, they improved as the series went on. By the time we got to Gardens, it was this really protracted kind of fight and could have totally been anyone's win. There were actually quite a few fights between these teams. The final fight on both Control Center and Night Market, I would say, are reminiscent of that. It's funny that it was the first fight on Gardens that was more like that. Ultimately, AHQ still came out the better of it though, and that's the thing. There are those 3 fights that were kind of similar to that, and here we actually have exactly that fight out of Libalent, and this is the only one of the 3 that AHQ didn't close out. So let's see how it happened for Libalent.
Do you want to see the moment as well where Libalent get the camp out, which is right now, and actually Carries ran in there in the final moments with his Transcendence to try and stop up the point, make sure it was contested. Ryan gets the solo kill into Dizzy as well before even the Deadite comes out. Darton takes down Carry, so everything kind of just goes wrong here for AHQ. The Transcendence, they didn't use that to get any trades. They tried to use that to contest a point, which was already over. Dizzy now changing onto the Soldier, trying to rush his way back in. Rapid does try and make it competitive, but ultimately Ryan should be killing Dizzy sometime around here. Is also Dizzy just spent a lot of time here being ineffective.
And the thing that happened here is like AHQ almost like carroted themselves. And by that I mean, like, you know, the whole carrot and stick thing, like they constantly had an incentive just in front of them. And the moment it seemed like it was in reach, they'd take a step and it would get back out of reach. They kept getting these return kills. And because of that, they decided, no, hold on, let's not back out of the fight, reset and try and go in again. Let's keep the fight up. And you see it here again with Eric. Sometimes it's Keris getting it, sometimes it's Dizzy getting it. And they did that constantly throughout the entire protracted skirmish. So it always felt like they could maybe overcome it even when it started turning sour, rather than backing out altogether. They had the time to back out altogether when the camp burst came through. There was only about 30% for Libalent, but by constantly, and I'll use the term again, carroting themselves, by constantly thinking victory was just in sight, they actually kind of baited themselves into a losing situation, and the safe play would have been to lose the cap, lose that fight, just back right off, reset, and then they would have had at least 2, maybe even 3 fights to get the cap back and win the map.
It's discipline, right? That's the key word here that you're looking for when you describe that kind of play, and it did end up working out for them on Control Center. So where it does work, it does look very good. Let's take a look at now Gardens and the replay. It's going to be 73% up already for the AHQ side. This should be a really good play here. I think this is the self-destruct play.
It is.
That was really huge. Here comes the timing of it. Bam, catches 2 already. 3rd kill coming from Carries onto the Lucio, who we don't see him on very often, but here he is, and still holding onto a number of ultimates. Dizzy nearing onto that rocket barrage as well, which he does use to secure the camp later on.
And the difference between those 2 ultimates there, because Jasper committed his as well. Jasper committed his to the point to create space. That's smart, right? That is a good thing to do in that situation, because you're also trying, like, the Pharaoh's already not going to be much on the point. You're kind of keeping her off the point. You're forcing the other DPSs out. The really tanky members have to get out, or they risk getting insta-gibbed by the self-destruct. By comparison, he went, okay, there's no point now me putting my self-destruct in the same place, because then no one's on the point and we gain nothing. A lot of D.Va players would do that. They go, okay, well, I can just counter their out by matching it. He went, I can do better than that. I can gain an advantage because of this. Because here's the thing. That self-destruct was on the point so that Libalent could move through the corridor safely onto the point itself. So he placed his self-destruct at the neck of the corridor. They couldn't back out. They couldn't go onto the point. First of all, they weren't going to get anything out of their own self-destruct. Second of all, he was even able to get 2 kills out of it. That's why this guy is constantly going off on this D.Va, why we constantly see him getting these big self-destruct kills where other D.Vas don't. He is still using the zoning potential of that ultimate, but he's just that next step beyond that of going, right, what's better than countering their ultimate, countering it, and gaining something?
That's the exploitation of understanding area control there from the AHQ side, because they know it's the Libalent Supreme consistently wanting to push through the white room, and they say this is where we're going to cut the neck straight away, making sure that no one gets out alive, making sure that if you are going to come through in the narrow chokeway, we're going to control that AHQ now, going to Hollywood.
Apparently Torbjorn got the wrong order, as why he's angry. So Sombros had to
he got
put him to sleep and call a taxi.
He got a spicy mix in his drink.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's hot. That's what it was. There are, like, you can get drinks with like chili in them.
I've had one.
I haven't actually. I like spice. I like spicy food as well, but I'm never quite keen to try that, because it's like, I could just have a normal drink, or I could have this one with chili in it. I'm just going to stick with what I know.
That's what every team says when they pick Lijiang Tower.
Exactly. They're like, oh yeah, I could maybe. You know what? Let's stick with the old-fashioned. So, Hollywood being AHQ's pick, this is interesting. We haven't seen them go there for a while, but traditionally this has been a map we feel they're very strong on. It is also one of the maps where they, in particular, have pulled out a Torbjorn. I don't know if we'll necessarily see that because the other team that pulls out the Torbjorn on that, which is Hong Kong Attitude, has lately been opting not to, but at any rate, with the one map win in the back pocket, AHQ now going to go to a very favored map for Hybrid.
And you do have to be somewhat surprised we're not going to Hanamura because AHQ had a decent run of Hanamura against Flash Wolves. Part of that reason was due to the experimentation going onto the Orissas, going onto Torbjorn on that map. So certainly, coming into Hollywood,
Well,
the possibility is there. We may just see that.
Part of the lack of Hanamura as well is we're currently on Hybrid, not Assault.
Okay, well we're gonna get to Hanamura later. So, they should have just picked Hanamura for.
Yeah, I mean they could have just.
Why not?
Like, why not just get it out of the way now? And you say Orisa, and
Well, 50% of that is there, and that's the fact that we are going to see the Orisa Torbjorn, which is what they were running on Hanamura, what that was so effective.
and a Roadhog, unless that gets swapped off. I did spot a Roadhog in that mix as well. So
Curious played that.
Yeah, exactly. He did. Sticking with the Torbjorn, that's a guarantee. Not sure about the Orisa Roadhog. We actually haven't seen them get to the point itself just yet, and it does look like they're going to be going more for a Diva Winston instead. Actually, maybe changing off this Torbjorn as well, so complete swap around here from AHQ.
Well, they weren't quite sure exactly what they wanted to play here. Yep, okay, now they're deciding for sure, but it was a real possibility because you do look at this team, you do look at what they played in the past, and it's not out of the question that they do it again.
It's kind of just the flexibility, really, and Libalent should have done their homework for Hollywood as well, so they will know that they like that Torbjorn here, AHQ, and it's just not going to be there. So if they're trying to expressly counter that, well, they're out of luck.
It doesn't appear they are because they're not running anything like a Junkrat. There's no real anti-Torbjorn strat here. Just going for something a little bit more standard in terms of dive and pepper on the Doomfist would say that.
Yeah, they're just going to punch their way through it. They don't really care what there is, but he is also the first casualty as Rapid absolutely has his number. Ryan, though, getting set up on the point. They don't want to just duck out of that fight too quickly, but AHQ have the area control down pat, are going to close out the skirmish pretty handily.
There's a lot of kills coming in from the AHQ side after just getting pepper. Libalent Supreme actually didn't fall back cleanly there. It didn't even appear like they really understood the situation. They kind of hung around for a little bit too long. AHQ took advantage of that. Full team wipe, a lot of ultimate charge here. Carries nearly on the EMP as well, importantly.
And that's going to be a really huge thing. We also noted that yesterday out of Keres when he was playing the Sombra, his ultimate uptime is phenomenal. And now, yeah, Libalent going to have to be fighting through that basically every single fight.
Back on to Jasper as well, going to start things off in here. Here comes the EMP, should be coming up very soon. Jasper losing his mech is going to spell trouble.
They do get to top him off, but I mean, without the mech there, they're effectively fighting at 5.5 versus 6, and now losing Darrington as well. They have no tanks. It's all on Ryan to try and close out, and no one can really get up to where Dizzy's position, so smartly, Libalent are going to back off, but they've now lost quite a bit of time.
And that's a big problem because the only one that can really do that is Pepper effectively. Darrington and Jasper need to really get in range as well. So for Dizzy, he's sitting very comfortable. He's getting a lot of damage done down range. He's already killed tanks, now swapping off.
And by the way, the EMP wasn't even committed, so that's still a tool at AHQ's disposal that Libalent have to deal with, and they don't really have many ultimates available anyway. This is going to be the commit with the EMP, and the follow-up is instant. Again, no one can really commit onto Dizzy, and Ryan not quite able to regroup with his team without that mobility, and it is indeed the ones hurt the most by their lack of mobility under the EMP that dive burst. The rest of Libalent successfully retreating, though, which is a real boon for them, but once again, we have to go back to the fact that they are now very short on time.
As an effective EMP is what caught pretty much every single member. The best part for AHQ is they didn't have to really use anything else. Eric's still got an ultimate, everyone's got an ultimate. Here comes a sound barrier, they want to close out the game right now.
That was a very early commit onto Darrington with that nano boost, but unfortunately they hadn't quite accounted for the entirety of AHQ's positioning, kind of charged in blind, and it costs them. The surround is there from AHQ, and now the route is too, as they're looking to demech Jasper. He's got a self-destruct, which he does not quite get a chance to use, and they're just going to leave him.
That's the best thing to do. Absolutely the best thing to do here. Jasper doesn't want to get left alone for too long, so he's trying to remech, just get that damage in there. Actually does a great job. He's already got his mech back, so a little bit Supreme. This is important for them because they need the time to repush.
They've got a bit of a window here. They need to get Eric down, but he's got a Primal Rage anyway, and now they're going to get that ultimate uptime with the EMP.
That's the thing you have to be considerate of, because Libalent Supreme have already fallen prey to the EMP once. It's a big EMP play. It's going to come out again. AHQ just looking so stocked up in the ultimate department.
Libalent now. I mean, it's been an uphill battle the whole time, really. Now here's the almost complete Christmas tree, and already they've picked Pepper anyway. Libalent just kind of have to regroup now. They're going to commit, actually. They have got a third, and they're pressuring out some of these members of HQ, but HQ haven't committed resources yet. They're just steering through this cleanly. He with the self-destruct kill as well as the EMP comes down, and that's a great follow-up. Now they can just use the ultimates they had banked up, because Libalent, in losing these members, don't really have time to go in for another fight anymore.
That was so clean from AHQ as well. They knew exactly where their limits were, so they used the ultimates that they needed, made sure they kept enough to be able to hold on for the final contest with Libalent Supreme. On the other side, though, Libalent Supreme just don't really look like they have the tools. A nano boost onto Darkin's probably going to be the way in, but is that going to be enough?
It's going to be a tough ask, to be sure, and a single kill could secure it, but that's the opening that they've been lacking as they finally dislodged Dizzy, and now it's Pepper who's set up. Just needs to kind of weather the storm. What a sleep. Now they've got a big opening as they send up He, but he just gets demexed and taken down. Now Eric has to regroup with the team. Pepper gets taken out, though, in the trade. Libalent are still in this fight, but AHQ very much are as well, and the Primal Rage from Eric gets the extra mileage. They pick Crappy, though. Ryan is certainly not done yet, but with his death, there is no one left on the card, and that's going to be the full hold on point A out of AHQ.
And the best attack was the last one, and the only one where they really put the pressure onto Dizzy. Dizzy had a really great time for the majority of that defense, didn't really have to get pressured all too much, sat on top of his perch, damage output was extremely effective, but as soon as Darton got the range in there, Nano Boost assisting him as well, finally got that kill to Dizzy, and we did see some progress out at Libalent Supreme, but not good enough progress, not enough kills, not enough conversions to actually get them a full cap.
Now they're at the situation where they only need a third on point A. I mean, this is why AHQ are good at Hollywood. This is something they do very, very consistently is full hold point A, and it basically means they set themselves up for a quick win. It's going to be a really tough ask for Libalent, and you've got to say, if they weren't able to break point A at all, how good could their defense be against that very same team? Like, they really just have to step it up here.
And by the way, you do have to go back to one of the older questions that was asked at the start of the series, especially on Lijiang Tower. But if Dizzy gets killed, when and where does Rapid come in? This time around, he was able to pull away. Dizzy sent back to the respawn room by Darden, and then Rapid was able to get the counter trace. He was able to keep his team within the game. And also, you have to consider that AHQ kept enough ultimates, made sure they weren't blade dry, had enough fuel left in the tank to actually close out that defense.
And on the flip side of that, where on Lijiang Ryan really was going off, we just didn't see him having the same impact. He was here and there, and he was lasting in the fights for a very long time, but he wasn't necessarily getting the closeouts on the kills that Libalent Supreme really needed.
So this is going to be a little bit creative now from the Libalent Supreme side. They're going to get very aggressive upon AHQ straight out the gates, expecting AHQ to just run straight past them. AHQ, if they're smart, though, this may just spot them out, and indeed it does.
Oh, that's really rough for Libalent. It was a risky play anyway, and they've got the time to reset at least, so nothing ventured, nothing gained, I suppose.
Yeah, a little bit of a sneaky venture. Doesn't really work out for them. Expecting now AHQ with only 1/3 to camp. What is the game plan here? Dizzy going to be looking for the flashbang kill onto a non-existent Sombra, so it's just Ryan in his sights.
Good pressure though, but Darrington, who needs to be careful. They're going to instantly try and close on because Darrington can't protect Pepper, and this is already the conversion. Off to a great start, and AHQ are going to do it in one fell swoop as Jasper loses the mech again. Rion, last man standing in the fight. Actually, technically Jasper died after that, but in any case, that's the third, and AHQ complete their speed run of Hollywood.
And they make it look easy as well. That was an extremely one-sided, extremely convincing both hold and then attack from AHQ. They knew exactly how they wanted to approach it, and they did just that. Darton had some good early pressure onto Dizzy, forced him to roll back, but ultimately Dizzy played patiently, AHQ played patiently, good counter aggression from Eric as well onto Pepper, taking him down first, ended up allowing AHQ to just get a chain of kills that gets them the cap.
That was pretty one-sided, let's be frank there. Not an unexpected expected one-sidedness, though. Like, this isn't fully representative of where these teams are relative to one another. Lijiang Tower would be more representative of that, and that was also an AHQ win. But AHQ really just are that good on Hollywood. This is not at all unsurprising. And with that, get themselves 2-0 up in the series, going to be taking us now to match point. It will be Libalent's pick, though, for Assault.
AHQ do favor the further maps across the board here. So early on Control tends to be their weakest, kind of like Flashballs in a sense where because their team kind of more relies on Dizzy playing a hit scan, he wants to be on stuff like Soldier, McCree, Widowmaker, even on Lijiang Tower. They kind of rougher around the edges on that kind of map. Again, similar to Flashballs, but then you get to Hollywood, you get to the hybrids, Assault, Escorts. This is when AHQ really starts to pick up. So if you're a Libalent Supreme, once again, the story for this team is it does not get easier.
And we kind of end up in the same situation as what Hong Kong Attitude just had against Ardien, where they're 0-2 down, they don't have the next map pick, and you go, well, look, can they reverse sweep from here? It's certainly possible, but you're into these more opposing side
Well, someone pwned.
favored game modes is what I'm saying. Someone pwns.
Someone pwned.
Someone got pwned, yeah. I haven't, like, aside from slipping up, because I get caught between opposing and opponent.
Yeah.
And aside from that, I haven't heard the word pwn actually used seriously in ages. Like, you remember when you played games and, like, that's actually what people said? Like, if you were in a game now and you lost a 1v1 and someone typed pwned, like, actually you would be the winner.
You're in that, I was like, wow, still 2007. Because
Fallout Boy starts playing in the background.
Because you came up with the term opponing, how do you spell it? Do you use PWN in opponing?
That's the real question. How is opponing spelled? Jeez. Let's take a look at some replays later to see exactly how Libalent Supreme got pwned, because this was their this was their final attack. And look, this was actually off to a really good start for them. They had done what they'd failed to do before in dislodging Dizzy. The sleep was great. They got He's mech. They were off to a good start. Unfortunately, it's in this commit now that they're split up. They let their members get a little bit too isolated. One member on the side gets closed out by the tanks and carries. A couple of members in the rest of the point are just kind of having this skirmish. No one's coming out the better of it. And because of that, AHQ were just able to chip away these kills and then come in earnest with the numbers advantage.
And that's where you really got to look at the evidence, because Dizzy went down early. That was their target. They absolutely did that quite well. Then you have a situation where Eric gets slept. Okay, again, they did that quite well.
Yeah,
but
it's great.
They didn't clean up the rest of the members, and this is when Rapid
It's a 4 versus 6, by the way.
And this is when Rapid really picks up his weight. He demix Jasper, cleans up Jasper. You have a situation where Eric finally wakes up, uses Primal Rage, has a great job with that, knocks everyone away, makes sure no one can actually contest for the overtime, and that's what ultimately led to Libalent Supreme's demise, despite a great start. The best possible start, you might even say.
It's kind of like the story of AHQ in general. It's like, and then Eric woke up. You're like,
Well, that's what it's dependent on. Because
exactly.
Asleep.
Like,
His default state is
he finally wakes up. Like about halfway through map 2, he's like, whoa. And then it's a quick closeout from there. So with that, they now secure themselves up 2-0 in the series. It is Libalent's pick for Assault, but AHQ is still looking very set to close this out in a 3-0.
And certainly now with Eric wide and awake, I wonder how much stronger AHQ do get with him all energized up. We're going to have to find out very soon, though. Once again, 2-0 up in the series. Libalent Supreme on their final legs. What are they going to show? And what will happen after this break? Thank you for sticking through that break with us as we're about to head into map number 3 now of the series, the middle one of the pack. Libalent Supreme and AHQ so far 2-0 in AHQ's favour.
Yeah, AHQ off to a good start to say the least, and Libalent Supreme are kind of getting pwned here.
Oh, well, back on that old. Back on that
I'm
old
bringing it
chestnut.
back. I'm really not. I'm really
2007 or 2017? I'm not too sure, but for Libalent
like-
Supreme.
I'm gonna write like a parody song of Sexy back, like I'm bringing pwning back.
Everyone's
You
like,
other
"Please no."
brothers don't know how to frag.
Oh my god, you already got the hook done.
Oh yeah,
The
I'm
most
ready.
important part of that song.
I'm ready to go.
is
I'm
good
ready to
to
go.
yeah.
Like I wrote this years ago. I've just been waiting for the word pwned to be out of fashion for long enough. But it is going to be a Horizon Lunar colony where Libalent will choose to get pwned for the third and final time. Now, it is their map pick, and this is their opportunity to try and turn the series back around. Look, the hope is still alive, and we were saying as well, success for this team right now is picking up map wins even if they lose series. So this is one they very much want to grab, and very achievable for them as well. This is a map they're strong on.
And another map that Dizzy can sort of go Widowmaker on, so you do have to be sort of concerned about that one. Otherwise, it's a good map to play Doomfist, so we should be expecting Pepper to go back onto that. Didn't really see the effect on Hollywood, so we had some early moments of Pepper trying to get the Doomfist in there. He was the first casualty, if memory serves correct, so it was a difficult sort of composition still for Libalent Supreme to pick up on. Maybe they'll have better success on their own map pick.
Exactly, right? And part of why we say they're solid on Horizon New Colony has been that Doomfist play. They're one of the teams that's still opting into it. AHQ are as well, but we do have to go back to that factor that in the previous patch where we were seeing a lot more Doomfist and his power level was a little bit higher, AHQ were kind of struggling, right? We have to be fair in saying that. Now, they seem to just have a bit of a better handle on the current Doomfist right now, but it's still a potential point of weakness for them, right? Like, this is still not something they're super comfortable countering out, and oftentimes they're more just countering out the other members of the team and getting to the Doomfist a little bit later.
Now, it was more of a time thing for AHQ because they were the latest team to really get into the old Doomfist. Now
yeah.
that we have had more time, one round robin already completed, it doesn't really appear that they have those difficulties that they did beforehand. So now we are seeing an AHQ that's better handled and better prepared in this current meta, especially with the new patch dropping. It definitely helps them out a lot more because they're the team that never really played Doomfist all that often, and they're the team now that has a better excuse to not play the Doomfist.
Looking at that telescope for a moment just really reminded me of like a Space Odyssey. Like, it kind of looked like Hal, but with a blue eye. Then you see the doors start opening. It's like, oh, thank goodness.
Come to me.
I'm afraid I can't do that. Yeah, if you haven't seen that movie, I mean, look, it's great, but just don't bother. Like, it's really long, eh? Like, you need to have nothing going on that afternoon.
2001 is about when porn was a word anyway, so yeah.
yeah. And funnily
2001
enough,
a porn odyssey.
yeah, they don't actually use that word in the movie at all, which really surprised me. But this is Pepper now opening up on the Widowmaker, and we have seen him pull out this pick as well. That is some success.
That is crafted because he wants to show Dizzy exactly what he can do here. So Pepper's had a lot of picks most recently. Dizzy starting things out also onto the Reaper. So far, it's mostly picks on the Libalent Supreme side.
Yeah, and a lot of this has just been the extra pressure exerted. Rapid is going to start to turn it back around for the team, though. They get Darrington. Unfortunately, couldn't close out those last few. Now the DPSs are back into the fray, and Libalent actually, because they don't have that second DPS, can't exert as much pressure on the point itself and lost some of the crucial members. They didn't have the staying power. That is a heartbreak for them to not close out those last few members of AHQ.
And the Doom squad from AHQ as well, just holding on to the camp itself. Rapid and Dizzy made sure that despite other members going down, they were winning that 2 versus 2. Kerry's coming in with the bio grenade as well, just securing that for his team, making sure Jasper wasn't going to get the healing, demecking him, wasting a lot more time for Libalent Supreme, and time is important because 1 minute is gone.
Time is money. Pepper now onto the McCree, already having a little bit of success, but getting hard pressured, so it's wasted some of AHQ's time. That's a window for Libalent, but they're having a hard time closing out. Again, Rapid just popping off to keep this fight on lockdown for his team. Finally goes down at the end, but it's a consolation prize, because Ryan can't solo cap that.
So far, Pepper's been finding it kind of difficult. He had some good moments so far in the Widowmaker, but switching off quite quickly, getting a lot of pressure from Rapid, who we have talked about as someone that's put a lot of pressure in general against Libalent Supreme, making sure that Libalent Supreme are not getting anything out of these pushes. Almost 2 minutes gone, not even a third in there, still waiting for headshots from Pepper.
And yeah, still waiting is one way to put it. We're maybe waiting for a little while. I feel like I'm hearing that like SpongeBob narrator going like 7 minutes later. Oh, this is going to be the go button now from Libalent as they get aggressive, and that's the pick they've been needing. They do lose Jasper, who doesn't quite get back in the mech, but they've still created the space from the self-destruct, and they're still capitalizing on that space as well. Dizzy back in though, Death Blossom out. No pulse bomb to keep him down, rather, out of Ryan. It got eaten up very handily by Hihi. Great coverage by him, and the self-destruct to force Libalent back off. Still kind of anyone's brawl from here, but Libalent had pulled back now to kind of regroup more earnestly. And Celine, oh dear.
Speaking of regrouping, their AHQ let themselves off the count for just enough of a time for Libalent Supreme to get the progress, 41.9%. Despite now Libalent Supreme losing their members, they are making progress most importantly. So the next push and the push after that, should they have enough time for it, will be important.
They almost certainly won't have enough time for that one after that, but they do get the next push. A little bit over a minute for it, and this is still very doable for them, but very lean on ultimates. HQ have so far done a great job of just keeping this point tight.
And the good thing for Libalent Supreme is they have been now finding picks onto Rapid, because Rapid's been a bit of an issue so far. Ryan has won a couple of the 1v1s. He needs to do that again if Libalent Supreme are going to get this cap at all.
We also really need to see Pepper having more of an impact. He can also be shutting down Rapid on the sides here. And now he's just going to wrap around, get into the front of the fight, and Libalent trying to get in with the sound barrier, but having a hard time of it. Ryan very low, Pepper as well, and the closeout here is Rapid around the side. Eric as well running the Primal Rage, making it impossible for these other members to get on. Well, luckily they will get that one last fight, but make no mistake, this is now their last chance, full stop.
And Dizzy and Crappy about to hit up the ultimates as well. So for Libalent Supreme, they're running out of time, they're running out of resources.
Oh, what a hide.
And Rapid, if he gets a good stick here, it's just all over for Libalent Supreme. They've already struggled to make headway onto this cap, only 1/3. It's a good 1/3, but it's not enough to actually win.
That hides the footsteps, if I'm not mistaken, and he's got eyes. He's got eyes on them. Pulse Bomb does. Oh no, Pepper! He was clear of it. Ryan answers with his own though. Rapid can still come in for the wraparound, and oh, can you say Beyblade meta as a nano boost onto the Reaper, but he doesn't get anything for it, unfortunately. And Jasper getting one with the self-destruct. Libalent still in this fight, but Dizzy's still going to close out on Jasper anyway. They need to convert the kills onto the DPSs. For as long as Dizzy, Rapid, and Eric are alive, AHQ are in this fight, and they are doing the work. Libalent struggling to get it done. Pepper finally rejoins with that dead eye, and they do close out on Dizzy. They're struggling their way through it, but they may just be able to do it. Pepper now has to commit to the point, but he goes down, and Ryan and Pepper both dying to Rapid at the end means another successful point A hold out of AHQ.
And this just gets more difficult for Libalent Supreme. We've already been in this situation. We were just there on the Hollywood. Thought this may be a little bit of an easier map for Libalent Supreme, but apparently not. AHQ want to make sure this is a clean sweep. 3-0 is in their sights, and Libalent Supreme starting to look downhill.
Unfortunately so. And that was just tough. I mean, through and through, right? The opening fight actually looked really good, but AHQ, they're not going to go down without any kind of fight, right? And it just happens to be that every single one of those fights ends up coming up AHQ as well. It's like the Black Knight from Monty Python, like 'tis but a scratch, you know? And the only difference is, then he gets up and kills you.
And the times that Libalent Supreme were successful is they were able to take Rapid down. Dizzy wasn't a super big factor. Death Blossom's kind of average. Didn't really get the mileage they were looking for there. So you almost look at the AHQ composition as not extremely optimal. You run the Reaper when you want to counter stuff out like the Doomfist. Pepper never even played the Doomfist, so he was on the Widowmaker, he was on the McCree. But that, at the same time, you do look at the fact that Dizzy didn't get a large amount of kills, but then neither did Pepper on the other side.
Try not to get yourselves killed.
Well, they do have to get just a little bit more than a third. I believe 41.9% was the end total for Libalent Supreme, or at the very least that was the last I saw. Wow.
That's very
wow. The coordination there was beautiful. I mean,
That's the kind of coordination you need to win a game of Overwatch.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's just a preview, folks. But yes, 41.9% is to the time to beat, or rather percentage to beat. A little bit over a third, very achievable.
Dizzy back on the Widowmaker as well. We've seen what Pepper can do on it. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. Dizzy, on the other hand, has been pretty solid so far, and he wants to close out this game now on this Widowmaker.
Yeah, he's going to show Pepper how it's done. Doesn't have that access to the high ground, though, because that's where Libalent are opting to make their stand, but they need to be careful. He's got some sightlines. Oh, headshot onto Keisuke. That's how you do it, Pepper. They do get one response kill, though, and that is very big, because now Dizzy's the only DPS affecting this fight. It's only the tanks that can do it, as long as they stay out of Dizzy's sightlines, but that's easier said than done, and actually there is still carriers in the fray as well. And never count out Eric, of course. AHQ still going to pressure onto this point, and they're just getting all the kills through. Libalent, largely no contest. One trade kill on Eric, but Ryan going to lose his life for it. That was a very quick closeout from AHQ.
Taking it quite patiently as well, not trying to take it too fast. Make sure you give Dizzy some space, but don't try and force anything too early. Dizzy, he got the space he needed. He got the kill into Keisuke. Also on the other side, Libalent Supreme probably shouldn't have peeked their heads out knowing that Widowmaker was on the board. So, a couple of mistakes here maybe, but AHQ, they understood the situation, they played to the objective, and they got it done.
And that was the play of the game there from Rapid. And that was like a really common theme throughout that entire series, really, was aside from a couple of hiccups on Lijiang Tower where it was mostly Ryan, Rapid really started to show up and started to surpass Ryan in the overall impact he was having on the game. Hollywood was a little closer to even, but then on the defense, it was just completely one-sided. By defense, rather, I mean Libalent's defense. And indeed AHQ's was as well, but we were still seeing the Tracers go a bit more toe-to-toe. That was, on the whole, just really clean. Like, do AHQ have somewhere to be?
And this is the opening attack now from Libalent Supreme as well. So we did mention this was a really successful attack. Opens up with Crappy, gets Eric as well. But we're not seeing that much pressure out from Pepper, so he gets picked up by Rapid, who we did also mention is a player that really picks up the pace when things start to turn ugly for AHQ.
And that's the thing, right? The early kills had been there, but by the time Rapid had got those 2 kills, that was on Ryan and Pepper, by the way. So those members are only just rejoining the fight now. And they're getting kind of swapped off and all these other awkward things are happening. Look, really by the time those 2 members had died, Libalent couldn't win the fight, right? You don't have the DPSs and your tanks can only do so much damage, especially against a Reaper, right? Reaper is so safe against the likes of Winston. It's so easy for him to get out. And if he doesn't have to get out, he can honestly stay in the fight most of the time and just take him down. The shotguns do a ton of damage to a Winston. He's happy to stay inside the bubble. It's just really hard to close out, and you just almost wish Libalent had the discipline to back off. And it's kind of like what AHQ did themselves on Lijiang Tower, where, you know, the carrot was in front of them. They're like, we got some kills, we can close it out, but didn't really respect the overall strategic situation.
Well, AHQ kind of proved it, right? They showed Libalent Supreme how to do it on their own offense with the Widowmaker. You got to play somewhat patiently, open up the sight lines, but do not overextend. Unfortunately for Libalent Supreme, they got a little bit eager. They got the opening 2 kills. That's very good. Now you need to convert that onto extra kills, and make sure you take it a little slower than you actually did, because you had a situation where Rapid just went off. He picked up the kills on the back end, completely evened it up. It was a 6v4, ended up being a 4v4, and the 4 remaining for AHQ got the job done.
And speaking of getting the job done, with that, the job is indeed done, with AHQ closing out the series 3-0. And again, Libalent struggling to pick up these map wins. And like we said, Libalent, they need to be getting map wins between now and the end of the tournament. They are likely going to be facing relegations. They need to upskill as much as possible between now and then. They are still a strong team, and just on paper, because they qualified through promotion relegations, there is a good chance for them to make it back out of relegations. But you want to take every little advantage you can get.
0-10 now for Libalent Supreme. 1-30 is their map record. That one map which they got off of Flash Wolves. After that, though, still struggling to pick anything up. And for Libalent Supreme, also trying to gel with a new member, and it has looked good from Ryan's perspective. He's had some good moments, but they haven't been good enough moments from either him or the rest of the squad to really pick up the additional map wins. By now, you kind of expect, if you are going to drop 30 maps, you want to have a record of at least 2-30, 3-30.
Exactly, and on the other side of that, of course, you have AHQ, who are happy to pick up another win, expected as it may have been, because they are currently the last of that top 4. There is the spot that is the most contested right now for playoffs, and Blank, who will be playing just after this, are very much going to be contending with that. But player of the game, going to go over to Erican on the Winston, and I think well-deserved as well. Very consistent throughout the whole series. It's a little unfortunate that Libalent didn't pick up the win, because you could have very much given that to Ryan had they got the win. So on the whole, look, strong performances, but like you said, in terms of Libalent, it just didn't quite come together, whereas for AHQ it did.
And Eric as well, the important thing to note about him receiving play of the game is there was nothing really flashy there. What he did was very good, because it didn't require flashy play. He doesn't need to pop off all over the kill feed. He doesn't need to get crazy primal rage plays. He did his job. He was consistent. That was the keyword that you used, and that's exactly how I describe in this matchup as well. He was just solid. He never really put his team in precarious situations. He made sure that he was available and doing the correct thing when it was required. You actually just look at Hollywood. It was probably the prime example that when AHQ pushed in, well, rather when AHQ, even the final moments, yeah, he got slept, but as soon as he woke up, immediately pressuring the other team, just instant impact. Now let's go to the post-match interview with the winners, and it's going to be rapid, and I'll be translating over.
嗨，大家好，我叫 Rapid。
我是阿雷。
嗨那个 Rapid 想先请问一下，碰上了这个日本队嘛？因为你们知道说他们一场都还没有赢过，但是呢，在你第一张控制地图漓江天塔的时候，好像不小心让了一分。当时是发生了什么事情？跟大家分享一下吧。
主要应该是我还没有进入状况，所以对上的机会。
So I was underperforming on that first map.
很 man， 就责任我来扛的概念这样子。
这边我想问的是，像 Rapid， 你之前是在业余战队打安娜的位置嘛？然后到现在
you used to be an Ana player as well.
之后玩了闪光，不知
But
道
now
是
you're playing a lot more
有为
Tracer?
了特别为了队伍去练这支角色，还是
So
自己
what were the sort of methods you used to practice Tracer?
并没有因为其实在以前业余队的末期的时候，其实队上就可能缺输出。那我也比较喜欢玩。
So I noticed there was a lack of DPS players in the professional scene in Taiwan, and I wanted to really practice DPS, specifically Tracer, to fill the gap.
刚好
就是迎合队伍，了解。
I sort of found the right opportunities too.
谢谢 Rapid 接受我们访问，也谢谢赛评阿雷。接下来呢，最后一
So
场
very brief and simple interview there from teammate Rapid from
Again, like
AHQ.
speed running. Like, are they in a hurry? Like, do they have dinner reservations or something? It seems so. But well, at any rate, a 3-0 victory and a very well-earned one for AHQ.
All right, well, that's going to be the second match of the day, all done and dusted. Now, Libalent Supreme still get to pick up their first win. AHQ quite comfortably taking that 3-0, and coming up is going to be the final match of the evening, Blank Esports against Machi Esports. So OPC Season 2 does continue, and all that action happens after this break.